Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and tackle a problem that sends so many fish owners into a total panic: a foul smelling aquarium. If you've ever walked into your room and been hit by a scent that's somewhere between a wet dog and straight up rotten eggs, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Today, we're focusing on exactly what causes your goldfish tank to smell, whether it's actually a bad sign, and most importantly, how to fix it and prevent it for good. Just listen to this cry for help we found from a frantic owner dealing with a murky 5-gallon tank. They said their tank was light brown, reeked of chemicals, and literally made them feel sick. It just goes to show how incredibly stressful and overwhelming a stinky tank can be. It's not just gross, right? It induces actual panic. But it also gives us our central mystery to solve. So the very first thing we have to figure out is this: is this stench just a totally normal, annoying part of having fish, or is it a major red flag for your fish's survival? The short answer: yes, it is absolutely a bad sign. You see, a healthy aquarium is a balanced ecosystem, and ecosystems actually communicate their overall health through smell. That brings us to section 1. The stink is a warning. Let's look at why you really need to heed that smell. Honestly, you need to treat this smell like a blaring warning alarm from your tank, telling you something has gone fundamentally wrong with the water chemistry. And this is especially true for goldfish. They are notorious ammonia machines because they produce so much waste. I mean, they're heavy eaters and incredibly messy digesters. Any sudden foul odor means their environment is rapidly turning toxic. When organic matter like fish waste breaks down, it creates ammonia. And in a goldfish tank, that ammonia can spike unbelievably fast, putting your fish in immediate mortal danger. Now check out this wild fact about human biology. We actually evolved to detect GS-Min, which is that healthy, earthy smell of fresh water and wet soil, sometimes called petrichor, at an incredibly sensitive 1 part per trillion. Why does that matter to us? Because your nose is perfectly biologically tuned by evolution to know the exact difference between healthy water and toxic decay. Moving on to section 2, decoding your tank odors. Let's see what these smells actually mean chemically. This comparison right here busts the absolute biggest myth in the hobby: the idea that fish tanks naturally just stink. They really don't. A healthy tank should smell like a forest after a rainstorm, just crisp and earthy. So, if you're getting a toxic tank smell, something that viscerally smells like harsh chemicals, window cleaner, urine, or raw sewage, you are smelling a massive chemical imbalance. Let's break down the specific chemicals responsible. If you smell something truly morbid, like, roadkill on a hot day, you're likely smelling cadaverine or its closely related cousin, putrescine. Just like the name cadaverine implies, this means something organic. A dead fish, a missing snail, or even a rotting plant root is actively decaying right there in the water. On the flip side, if you catch a distinct rotten egg or swampy sewage smell, that points directly to hydrogen sulfide. This happens when you have dead zones in your tank, usually deep down in thick gravel, where oxygen just can't reach. Anaerobic bacteria thrive in those spots, and when they process waste, they release this highly toxic sulfur gas. By mapping the smell directly to an urgency level, this matrix gives you the exact biological logic you need to know how fast to act. Got a sharp chemical ammonia smell? That is a code red. Your fish are basically burning in their own waste. A rotten egg smell is high urgency, pointing to those dangerous gas pockets. Now, a musty or sickly sweet sugary smell gives you a little more time. It usually points to old filter media or a bacterial bloom, but make no mistake, it for sure still requires action. All right, section 3, finding the stinky culprits. Let's track down exactly where that smell is hiding in your aquarium. Take a look at this lineup of physical suspects. Any one of these issues, from a single dead snail tucked away in a castle decoration to chronic overfeeding that turns into a nasty sludge at the bottom, can cause a catastrophic ammonia spike and that awful stench. Goldfish are notorious beggars, so we naturally tend to overfeed them. Well, that leftover food rots so fast. And if your filter pads get clogged with brown slime, the water flow completely stops, oxygen drops, and the rotting just accelerates. But here's a totally surprising culprit that almost everybody misses: the underside of the tank lid. Moisture and old dried flake food can easily get trapped on the glass just inches above the waterline. It essentially creates this hidden rot factory that will make your whole room smell, even if your actual water tests perfectly fine. Crazy, right? Okay, moving into section 4, the 5-step odor fix, let's look at your actual emergency protocol. We're not going to leave you hanging with a smelly room. Following these exact 5 steps in order is your emergency odor elimination protocol. It stops the toxic cycle dead in its tracks without crashing your tank's fragile ecosystem. First, do a head count, do a body search, and find any missing fish or snails. Second, deep vacuum about a third of the gravel, just a third so you don't destroy all your good bacteria. Third, do a large water change. Fourth, safely rinse your filter. And fifth, wipe down that sneaky lid. I want to pause on step 3 for just a second. When you do that water change, cap it at a maximum of 30 to 50% of the volume. We want to dilute the pollution, absolutely, but changing too much water all at once will rapidly shift the temperature and pH, which can lethally shock your goldfish. The saying goes, dilution is the solution to pollution, but it's got to be done carefully. And that brings us to section 5, filter care and prevention. Once the immediate crisis is over and your tank smells like a fresh forest again, we need to focus on keeping it that way. Prevention is always easier than a cure. These rules right here are the bedrock of a healthy tank. First, stop overfeeding. If the food isn't totally gone in 2 minutes, you've fed too much. Trim those dying plant leaves weekly. Add air stones to bump up the oxygen and break up those dead zones. And really pay attention to your activated carbon. It acts like an odor sponge, but it gets full. If you don't replace it every 3 to 4 weeks, it can actually start leaking all those trapped odors right back into your tank. No way we want that. Which brings me to a massive warning. I literally cannot stress this enough. Always rinse your dirty filter pads in old tank water that you've siphoned into a bucket. Never, ever use tap water. The chlorine in your tap water is chemically designed to kill bacteria. It will instantly wipe out the life-saving, beneficial bacteria living in your filter that eat your goldfish's waste. Do that and you trigger a massive cycle crash, and the smell comes roaring back worse than before. So I'm going to leave you with a final thought to ponder. When your tank stinks, are you just treating the symptom by trying to mask the smell, or are you actually fixing the ecosystem? Never use aerosol air fresheners near your aquarium. Those chemicals settle right onto the water and can easily poison your fish. Instead, rely on the biology and science we impact today. Find the source, restore the biological balance, and keep your goldfish thriving in crystal clear water. But really, it does make you wonder, if a single drop of old food can completely crash a 5-gallon ecosystem, what other invisible chemical battles are happening in your living room right now?